Hello and welcome everyone to today's session where we're going to be reviewing some tenses again. Let's have a look at what we're going to be looking at. We're going to review both the formulation and concept of three present tenses today. Present simple, I do, present continuous, I'm doing, and present perfect continuous, I've been doing. As you're very familiar with the formulation, we'll do a very quick review of the formulation, starting with present simple. As you know, it's I, you, we, they, plus the base verb, do, I work, and the help verb you need to make your questions and negative sentences are do and don't. So do or don't you work? No, we don't work. Of course, a very important thing to remember for the present simple is that with the pronouns he, she, and it, you need to add an S to your base verb, so she works, and then the help verb, the auxiliary verb that you need for questions and negatives is does. Does or doesn't she work? And the negative, of course, she doesn't work. So very briefly now, looking at the formulation of present continuous, your help verb here is be. So you conjugate the verb be in the present tense. I am, you, we, they are, he, she, it is, or of course contractions are more common. And then you add doing. I'm working. And the help verb to create your questions and negative sentences is of course again the verb be. Are or aren't they working? No, they're not, or they aren't working. And finally, looking at our third tense today, present perfect continuous, the formulation is now with the help verb have. I, you, we, they have, or the contracted form v, and he, she, it has, contracted again to z. And now what we add is been doing, and we arrive at a positive sentence like I've been working. And of course, to create questions and negatives, we use the help verb have. In this case, has or hasn't it been working? No, it's not, or it hasn't been working. So very brief review of the formulation because we want to focus more on the concepts. But first, I'd like to mention something or two things about negative questions, two little notes. The first note is that negative questions are usually in the contracted form. So don't you, isn't he, hasn't it. You can use the full form of not if you want, but you will sound more formal. You can say, do you not, or is he not, has it not. I think you can hear that is a lot more formal. Now, the only verb that has to be in the full form is am. It's always am I not. And that's, of course, because the contraction amn't doesn't exist. But alternatively, you may hear and you can say, aren't I? Sounds strange, but that is the contracted form for I as well. The second point I would like to mention to you about negative questions is that we usually ask a negative question when we're surprised that something doesn't seem to be what we expect. So there's an element of surprise in a negative question. So the intonation, therefore, is different from a neutral positive question. In a neutral positive question, you rise slightly, like, do you eat meat? And the answer can be yes, I do, or no, I don't. But if you're surprised, the intonation is a bit stronger. For example, why have you ordered a vegetarian dish? Don't you eat meat? So much higher rise on a negative question. The answer is again the same. Yes, I do, but only occasionally, or no, I don't. So that's all about formulation and a little bit about negative questions. Now let's compare the usage, the concepts of these three tenses. As you all very well know, present simple refers to facts, habits, and regular actions. For example, I cook dinner every Wednesday evening. Present continuous is to do with a temporary situation or an action in progress at the moment. For example, it's Wednesday evening, so I'm cooking dinner now. And present perfect continuous now is again an action in progress, like present continuous, but it's we want to tell our listener that this action has been in progress for some time, from a past moment until now. For example, I've been cooking dinner for half an hour. Let's look at one more example for the different concepts. For example, a fact, present simple, she works as an architect, but present continuous, action in progress, temporary situation, she's currently working on a restoration project. And present perfect continuous, action that started in the past and continues until now, she's been working on this project since March, right? Now, I'd like to just look at some common time expressions that we use with each of these tenses. For present simple, very common time expressions are every day, once a month, regularly, occasionally, and all the adverbs of frequency, usually, sometimes, often, always, rarely, and never. For the present continuous, the common time expressions are now, at present, at the moment, and currently. And for present perfect continuous, the common time expressions are, and look at my hand, it's coming from the past to the present. For 2 days, since April, since I arrived, recently, lately, all day, the whole week, in the past or last few weeks. So these each fit the concept that we've just clarified. But I'd like to add a very important note on time expressions, and that is that don't expect to always see or hear a time expression in every sentence, because what is very peculiar and particular to English is that the tense itself is enough to clarify the time frame. We don't necessarily need a time expression. So if someone says, I commute by train, obviously they mean every day, daily, because they're using the present simple tense. If someone says, it's raining, without saying now, because they're using the present continuous tense, obviously it's now, at the moment. And someone may say, I've been thinking about your proposal. They don't need to add for or since. Just using I've been doing, I've been thinking, tells you that it's for some time. That's a very important thing to remember. So now, I would like to mention a very special use of the present perfect continuous without a time frame. We use this tense, present perfect continuous, for an action that has just ended. So the action doesn't continue, it's not in progress anymore, it has ended very, very recently, but its effect, particularly undesirable, negative effect, is still present. For example, you look at someone's hands and they're dirty, you say, why are your hands dirty? Have you been gardening? They're not gardening anymore, but they have just stopped, and because of that, their hands are still dirty. And they can answer, yes, and my back hurts because I've been bending down too much. They're no longer bending down, they've stopped that, but the result, the outcome, which is unwanted, is here. So don't be surprised if you sometimes hear this tense, present perfect continuous, for an action that has already stopped. Now, the next thing I need to mention is about state verbs. Every time we study continuous tenses, we need to also mention state verbs. Why? Because, as you know, state verbs, these are verbs that describe a state instead of an action, don't take continuous tenses. As you know, they switch to the simple form of that tense. Now, the most common state verbs are be and have. So let's look at examples. So, for example, you can't say at the moment he is being the top student. Is being doesn't exist, it doesn't work, it has to change to its simple form. At the moment, he is the top student. And we can't say he has been being the top student the whole term. Has been being doesn't exist, so we change to he has been the top student the whole term. Let's look at the example with the state verb have. So you can't say now I'm having a toothache. It's now I have a toothache. Or you can't say I've been having a toothache for the past 3 days. It switches back to its simple form. I have had a toothache for the past 3 days. Now, there aren't so many state verbs. Most verbs are action verbs, but there are some important ones. I've listed a few common ones for you here, other than be and have. These are think, believe, know, like, want, belong, and exist. So, and of course, you can find a list of state verbs on the internet anytime. Right. Now, so if you ever see a state verb, the ones that we have just mentioned, in a continuous tense, it is because it has adopted an action meaning. So let's look at these examples. She is usually easygoing. She is, that's a state, so it's in the simple form. She is usually easygoing, but today she's being difficult. Here, be has lost its state meaning, and now it has replaced the verb behave. Here, be means behave. She's behaving in a difficult manner. We've been having issues with our Wi-Fi connection. Why can we use this in the present perfect continuous tense? Because here have means experience. It has become an action verb. Or I've been thinking about your suggestion. Why can we put it in the continuous tense? Because it's not related to someone's opinion or belief. It's about someone's action. They are considering something. They're reflecting on something. Right, the next point is that be careful with the verb feel. Feel can be used in both simple and continuous forms without changing its meaning. So if you hear I've been feeling tired all day or I've felt tired all day, they mean exactly the same thing. But be careful because we sometimes use feel as a synonym for think or believe, giving our opinion. In that case, of course, then you can only use the simple form. I feel, I think, I believe that he's the right candidate. And to finish, I would also like to mention two very important verbs in this context of present perfect continuous, etc. And they are the verbs live and work. These are action verbs, live and work, and therefore in simple tenses they express a fact, like I live in Cambridge or he works in an IT firm. When they express facts like this, when we add the time frame to it, the time information to it, we usually stay in the simple form. So I live in Cambridge, I've lived there all my life. Or he works in an IT firm, he's worked there for a year. But of course, as action verbs, they can go into continuous tenses. And when we put live and work in a continuous tense, now they express a more temporary situation, not a fact of life. For example, I'm currently living with my sister. And in this context, it's better to, again, use the present perfect continuous when you bring the time in. I've been living with her for a week. Next example, at the moment, he is working on the new website, and bring in the time element, he's been working on it since Monday. But of course, there's a very fine distinction between is this a fact of life or a temporary situation? And if this difference between long-term fact or short-term temporary is irrelevant, then the two forms mean exactly the same thing. So if you hear he's worked here for a year or he's been working there for a year, they mean exactly the same thing. Or saying I've been living here for 3 weeks or I've lived here for 3 weeks mean exactly the same thing. So very important to remember these two verbs where they come into these tenses. They can get confusing. Right, that's the end of this review lesson on the present simple, present continuous, and present perfect continuous tenses. I hope it has been helpful to you. I hope you've enjoyed this lesson. For more on this topic, click here. Remember to also check out my complete online course and don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you for watching and happy studies!